This is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. Now, I realize it is early in the legislative session, but there is a markedly different tone in Tallahassee this year. We're not seeing as many of the divisive social issues as we have previously. Again, it's early, so we will need to take a wait-and-see attitude. But this week, I spoke to Democratic State Senator Rosalind Osgood, and she agreed the tone is different this year.
Well, I think we have different leadership. We have Senator Ben Albritton, who is the Senate president, and Danny Perez is the Speaker of the House. And Senator Albritton set a tone right out the gate in his initial message that we can have different perspectives, but that we're going to operate in love in a way that we respect each other. So I feel like it's a climate where people are working, as a part of a team, although they have different perspectives. It's not mean-spirited. It's not a lot of, antagonism going on. The Senate is kind of a cool place. You work in a certain way. It's only 40 of us. And although, we have 28 Democrats, 28 Republicans and 11 Democrats, it's not something that's extremely hostile.
I know that one of the issues that is being taken up again this year deals with condos and the fallout from the legislation that passed a few years ago after the tragedy at Champlain Towers, with the idea of how do a lot of those condominiums handle the issue of having enough in reserves, those reports that they need on the structural integrity, and setting aside money. I've always been a believer that I own a private house. If my roof needs fixing, I have to plan for that and take care of my roof. No, the government doesn't really come often and bail me out. I know there are some programs, but by and large, as a homeowner, it's on me to take care of my property. I know that for a lot of condominium owners, this has hit them hard because suddenly they're getting huge assessments. So how do you balance that and address some of the concerns that condominium owners have that they're being hit too hard, that they're having to come up with too much money in a very short period of time to make necessary repairs?
Yes, Jim, I've heard from a lot of condo owners. I have Sunrise Lakes Phase 4 and 5 in my district that I've met with. They sent 726 letters to the governor expressing their concern about having to come up with so much money so quick. They're a 3-story, 2-story high-rise apartment condo complex, and they just feel that they needed a little more time. We are getting a lot of feedback from residents about the condo reserves and, the money that they have to come up with, the structural the structural survey that they have to do, the inspection, the structural inspection that they have to do. And what seems to be the problem is once they get the structural inspection, they don't have to do everything tomorrow. I think that's one of the things that I've been trying to explain to people. And then I do believe there is a difference. I actually filed a bill that was suggested to me some ideas from my constituents in Senate District 32. And this bill would give a delineation between high rises that are 6-story and higher and those that are not. And then those condos that are on the coastal area and those that are not. In my district, most of my condos are west. They're not on the coastal area. And they're just asking for an extra, 2 years to come up with the different money for the roof reserves, for the structural reserves. They're very okay with the 10-year inspection. I actually agree with that. I think 40 years to inspect the building is way too long. But you have to balance because we don't want another Surfside. But I think sometimes we react too aggressively when the state is a diverse state. So I think we maybe should have legislation for true high rises that are on coastal areas And then those that are not on coastal areas, like on the west side of town, we should look to do something different. But I can tell you that the residents are hurting. Another thing that's happening is people are leaving. So when someone leaves and the unit is there, now the remaining people have to pick up the additional cost because there's an empty unit.
Well, and this segues often into discussions about property insurance as well, another area of contention for a lot of your constituents, for people across Florida. It seems to be that the market seems to be stabilizing a bit, but do we expect any major moves out of the legislature, from your colleagues, when it comes to property insurance this year?
No, as a matter of fact, a lot of the talk in Tallahassee is to just let what's in place kind of work itself out. However, there's been a lot of recent news that was prompted by an article that I think the Miami Herald did around these insurance companies that were not being truthful in reporting. And I know that there's talk in Tallahassee about bringing them in and putting them under oath and having them to, kind of defend themselves. Speaker Perez seems to be a guy with a lot of integrity and is not going to tolerate insurance companies misrepresenting, themselves, saying that they were crashing when they were really making profits. So we'll have to see how that play out over the next couple of days.
The governor has also talked about doing away with property taxes. I'm not sure I never know how seriously to take someone when they say something like that, because I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that in Florida, we don't have income tax. There's no state income tax that they have in other states. The way we tend to fund our local governments and our government is through property taxes and sales taxes. If we shift more burden onto sales tax, that's just a regressive tax against that hurts the poor more and the middle class more than it helps anyone else. Do you seriously think that there's a chance that they could try to do away with property taxes? And what would that look like, and what would that mean if they did to local police departments, to school boards, on down the line?
Well, Jim, it will be horrible. And I think that we have to understand that government runs primarily from taxes. It is how we fund programs and services. And if we did away in Florida with the property tax, I think property tax is a large part of our county's budget. I think it could be 50 to 60% of school board budgets. It is a large part of our city government budgets. So it would make our local operations really, really ineffective and inefficient because we won't have the money we need for law enforcement, for fire rescue, for our schools. And if we shift it to a sales tax, it's going to really, really be horrible for low and moderate income families, because if we get a break on property taxes, like I would like to not have to pay the $3,800 of property tax. But if it's shifted to a sales tax, then every time I buy clothes and different items, I'm paying that sales tax. Right now, our sales tax is 6%. If we shift it, let's say, to 10%, it's an ongoing burden. And those poor people and the people in moderate income families, a lot of times they're not homeowners. So they're not going to benefit from removing property insurance, but they're going to be burdened with paying the extra sales tax. And then if we switch it to income tax, there are many of us that work and many of us that don't, and we have the same situation. We have to understand these conversations about taxes. We just went through a process where the voters voted to have an additional $25,000 on their homestead exemption. Well, that money is going to be missed somewhere that it's going to have to be made up for. So it normally results in the ground on increased water bills, increased fire rescue charges, public safety charges. So we have to just understand that when we talk about cutting taxes, it's what we agree to do. We vote and agree to tax ourselves to provide services in our community and to try to help lift up our community. I think about the infrastructure in the cities right now, where many of them have made plans to try to, build out infrastructure, put in new infrastructure. And if that pot of money go away, it's not like they can just pull the money out for a tree in a sense. It just makes no sense.
I didn't want to end today's discussion with you without talking about one of your colleagues who recently passed away, Senator Geraldine Thompson. She represented the Orlando area. A lot of folks in South Florida may not be familiar with Senator Thompson, who just died a few days ago. I know there was a memorial this week for her. Tell folks a little bit about Senator Thompson and the mark that she leaves behind.
As a young Black girl, you don't see people that look like you during the time I was growing up in bodies of government being representatives and senators. And she was kind of that role model, that trailblazer for many of us that let us know that, we could have one of those spots as well. She's going to be greatly missed. I mean, it was phenomenal with her memorial. We had 100% participation from the Senate caucus. And even, people that were not in Senator Thompson's political party spoke very highly about how they respected her. She was going to stand up for what she believed in. She was not going to back down. And she was going to show up for work every day. So she taught us to be present, to be faithful, and never to stop fighting for what you believe in. She's going to be really, really missed. She wanted a different office this year. And so she moved to another office, and I actually have her old office, and I'm going to keep her picture up. I'll make sure she's never forgotten. She was just an incredible public servant that fought for civil rights, for most of her life.
When we come back, we will meet the new head of the Democratic Party in Miami-Dade County. Stay with us.